Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 versus 1 bot AI cast. I've got my monster energy drink. I'm ready to punch holes in drywall, but first, we're gonna cast some Starcraft 2. On the map, Automaton, the AI edition. We have got two of the top bots right now. In fact, I think it's safe to say probably the two top bots right now. We've got negativeZero taking on Eris in a PvZ that is just gonna be an incredibly high level bot match. Both these bots are incredibly flushed out. They don't have a lot of critical flaws that can be exploited. They've all been patched out over the years. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this one, make sure to go ahead and click that like button. Leave a comment down below saying more bots if you want to see more of these bot matches, as I certainly enjoy casting them. And those comments, they help with the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. You can also check out my new second channel that currently has one video on it, but I'm sure I'll add more at some point in the future. And yeah, let's see how this one's gonna go between these two. This is a bot author recommended replay, by the way, so someone else looked at this match and said, hey, this is a good one. And seeing as how it's negativeZero and Eris, I don't see how it could not be a good one. We've got an early scout for negativeZero, making sure there's no shenanigans or anything like that. And Eris just doing its thing. Eris plays it incredibly safe for the most part and gets away with it. But negativeZero is an absolute killer Protoss bot. It can do early aggression, but then it also has incredible army management, so if it reaches a death ball, Eris can be in trouble. And we'll just have to see if that's going to be the case or not in this game. And yeah, we've got the probe scout returning home. Eris gonna be sending that drone out to build a third base. Both these bots utilize speed mining, of course, which is kind of a must-do if you're gonna have a high-level bot, as it's a huge buff. Of course, it means you might have to do a little bit more programming work on how to implement this speed mining, because of course, if you're issuing commands to your workers all the time, that means you might have to account for some situations, that kind of thing. But I believe if you were to program a bot, there is, I'm sure, some open source speed mining tools that you could utilize in order to get that implemented in your bot. But economy management is a difficult part of programming a bot, but a very important one, as you've got to make decisions when, for example, what to do with your workers when you've got too many workers, not enough bases, whether to long distance mine when you're oversaturated, that kind of thing. We've got another scouting probe. Over that one gets killed off. negativeZero is moving out to take a very quick third base. 3 minutes and 20 seconds into the game. That is ridiculously quick. Something that certainly is only possible due to that speed mining. I don't believe human players can get down a third Nexus at 320 unless you completely skip like all your tech, but negativeZero isn't doing that. It's making actually quite a few zealots already. There's one adept out, which I should have been covering more of. Been able to secure one kill as it shades around Eris's base, just one ling kill. And then gonna be shading on out of there. So the early adept, quite a nuisance, then sending out a hallucinated Phoenix. negativeZero doesn't want to be caught off guard. Of course, neither does Eris. And we'll just see as both of these bots are macroing up incredibly effectively. Eris does have to respect negativeZero's early game moveouts, which I think it's probably going to be going for right now, or relatively soon, as it's got 7 zealots, saying it's behind schedule. I'm not sure how it's 17 seconds behind schedule, as nothing too significant has happened. Maybe that's it keeping tabs on its opponent. I believe the bot author did answer that in a comment down below somewhere, but I forget because I have a goldfish brain. We've got this adept still hanging around, scouting out the 4th base of Eris. could be in a little bit of trouble if these Zealots head on over there. However, they seem to be getting pulled in multiple directions. That would be because of the presence of this one scouting Ling. The Zealots were debating whether to go home and help with that. And they did. I mean, they kind of were heading home, but it got cleaned up because it was just one Ling. Now, that meant that negativeZero's attack is going to hit a little bit later, so we'll see if it can potentially still cancel or kill this fourth base, or whether it's just going to run into the natural. Eris has got itself 14 Lings to try and deal with this. The Zealots are coming on in. Guardian Shield gets popped on the Sentry, which I guess is going to help out against the Queens. Zealots are cleaning up most of the Lings here. However, there is Roaches being produced by Eris, so I think the damage that's going to get done by this attack is limited. Looks like a Zealot may get a Queen. No, not quite. negativeZero still has Adept shading around as well, but the Roaches of Eris should be more than enough to clean this up. As I say that, though, 2 Adepts did make it behind the mineral line, and that forces the drones of Eris to burrow in order to stay alive. The burrow tool, incredibly effective when it comes to keeping workers safe. Unfortunately, it does cost mining time still if those workers are sitting under the ground until the threat is completely past. negativeZero, it isn't killing drones, but it's still getting economic value out of these Adepts. The 3 Zealots are also going to go on in once more. However, there is Roaches and a Queen in position. And yeah, looks like Eris going for a little bit of a Ling run by. negativeZero has got a battery building, already got a cannon at that base. The Zerg bot definitely will put pressure on with mass Lings, so static defense is always a good investment. Behind this, negativeZero does have a 4th base on the way. Meanwhile, Eris already getting up its 5th. And so both these bots are just churning out units, churning out drones at this point in the game. Well, really churning out drones and probes for the most part. The units will come in a minute because they are going to be maxed out very soon. We've got double Immortals being produced by negativeZero. Great Contaminate by the Overseer in order to delay that Immortal production. That could actually be significant later in this game. We've got Observers spotting these Lings coming on in. negativeZero is repositioning some of its units to try and intercept, although it's a little split up, so these Lings could potentially find something. We shall see. So far, though, negativeZero doesn't have anything major to worry about. We've already got a cannon building at the 4th, which is important to deal with those Ling run-bys. And Eris behind this is getting up Hydras, getting up 1-1. Groove Spines on the way, and same with an Infestation Pit. It's going to be curious to see whether whether Eris will be able to potentially kill negativeZero in the early, before it maxes out, or whether it'll be able to go toe-to-toe with negativeZero when they're both maxed out. Because in the previous match, negativeZero's army control did seem to be just a little bit too much once it had fully built up to that Protoss Death Ball, which it's definitely doing right now with triple Immortal production on the way. That is just nuts. That is every Protoss player's dream right there, as there's very few scenarios in which Immortals are not good units. Unless there's like mass mutas or something. negativeZero is looking to get aggressive already, stepping onto creep. Observer to reveal the creep tumors, but there seems to be way too much Zerg coming forward in order to defend this, so the Protoss bot did overextend. There's a couple of sentries, but no Guardian Shield or no force fields getting tossed down to help deal with this. And the Protoss bot does get pushed away, only losing 1 Immortal, but still a very solid defense by Eris. Eris is also getting out Infestors, getting a Hive, a Greater Spire, or just a regular Spire on the way, pardon me. And then getting up that 6th base as well. So the fight has started, and I'm not sure it's ever going to stop here as these 2 bots are trading out. negativeZero is sending in reinforcements. Eris is pooling up its units as well as it can. Meanwhile, upgrade-wise, we've got 2-1 upgrades done or on the way for Eris. negativeZero's got +2 attack. A great fungal growth catches a lot of this Protoss army, and that is actually going to be quite a few kills guaranteed on the Immortals. Another fungal growth going to secure another couple of kills. Stalkers and Immortals going down. So negativeZero not taking the best trades so far against the army of Eris. The Zerg bot is doing a really good job holding the line for now. We've got triple Disruptor production all of a sudden on the way for negativeZero, so it's really making use of that. Well, I was going to say triple Robo, but it's actually 4 Robos, so it's not quite making use of all of its Robos. However, the Protoss bot is still just pumping out units. Eris does have a few mutas on the way, which is cool to see. we'll get to see if they are able to get any damage done or not. Potentially harassing, maybe just dealing with the oracles. Great fungal growth catches 4 of these immortals once again as negativeZero is getting aggressive with what seems like a relatively small army compared to what Eris has. I mean, simply being the defender helps out with that. Both bots are still actively producing units. Eris is just hitting max out now, so its army will be what you see is what you get until they trade out a bit more. The muta count is actually going beyond what I thought it would, as there's currently, well, there's going to be 6, 7, 8 mutas are going to be out. That's going to really test the defense of negativeZero potentially. The mutas are actually on the front lines defending, and I mean, there's actually not that much anti-air for the Protoss. 2 sentries and a stalker are the anti-air of negativeZero. negativeZero is pivoting in order to deal with these mutas, though, as it goes into Phoenix production, and Phoenix and Colossus changing tactics here. And I think that may be a necessity for negativeZero, as Eris seems to be getting wins mostly across the board. The Protoss just doesn't seem to be taking that many efficient fights, as it's really just out on the map skirmishing all over the place, and the Zerg Deathball is quite the Zerg Deathball. Fungal growth caught a few more Protoss units. We are seeing Disruptors get Novas out, but not necessarily off. And man, oh man, casting these bot games it's so difficult because they're doing so much at once as they just cruise up in that APM. It is just next level, as yeah, these bots, they are so darn good. I mean, 50,000 APM for Eris, just about. negativeZero cruising at around, they're both cruising at around 40,000, depending on how much action is taking place. We do have Broodlords on the way now for Eris, and the mutas are still doing work, so that Spire was a worthwhile investment. The one cannon is helping kind of deal with these mutas, but really probes are running all over the place. Where are the Phoenix? The answer is they are coming on in, and that should signal the end of the reign of the mutas, depending on how the micro goes. But yeah, I think the Phoenix should have that one. Meanwhile, on the front lines, negativeZero is still kind of constructing a wall, in the sense that it's just throwing out units, so Eris can't really advance, as negativeZero is just constantly out on the map, constantly fighting. Now, the Broodlords could definitely pose a problem for the Protoss bot. There's Tempest now on the way, and another Stargate building as well. That's going to be a necessity to potentially take out this air composition of Eris. The Colossus are going to be no good, seeing as how there's Corruptors, there's an Abduct on multiple high-value Protoss units. Resources lost. Eris is actually trading more efficiently than the Protoss right now, and that seems to be getting worse as we see more Colossus get abducted. There's even lurkers in the ground now, which means detection has to be on point. We've got the Phoenix lifting up what I believe was a Roach there, and then still the odd muta flying around. negativeZero is on 5 bases. Eris has soared up to I believe that's 8, 9 bases for the Zerg bot, so negativeZero is in a bit of a rough spot. Phoenix are fighting and doing what they can, but they really can't do that much against Corruptors. With bot like Micro, maybe the Phoenix should, in theory, never die. However, the Corruptors also benefit from being independently controlled in that they can turn on a dime, and they have very high acceleration. So it does seem that the Corruptors are able to get shots off on the Phoenix, which is meaning they won't take that efficient of trades. Both bots are pumping out units as fast as they can, though. There's really no bank on either side, which is quite significant. And out in the middle of the map, these two armies are still skirmishing back and forth. Creep is spreading all over the place. A Tempest out on the map is able to find a hatchery of Eris that's building on what is definitely negativeZero's side of the map. negativeZero cleans up a Ling towards the 12 o'clock position, which could potentially be another base for the Protoss, and it definitely is a necessity, as negativeZero will start to mine out quicker than Eris, which has many more fresh bases than its opponent presently. We've got triple Disruptors being made. Tempest are out on the map to potentially deal with the Corruptors, to potentially deal with the Broodlords. It's all going to come down to micro control, that kind of thing. They are picking off a few of those Broodlords. Cool independent targeting on the Tempest. Just popping those 2 Broodlords with 2 shots. Very good to see there wasn't any overkill there. We've got Zealots, Disruptors absorbing the Lings that are charging forward for Eris. We're seeing pretty much every unit be made in the Zerg arsenal right now. Tempest are getting shots off. Disruptors trying to connect with Lings. It's just non-stop micro on both sides. What a match this is between these two. Corruptors are dying as they fly over Stalkers, which are now blinking all over the place. Upgrades are still rolling on both sides, as we see Flyer upgrades researched, melee upgrades researched. So both these bots aren't even at their final form yet, although I'm not sure if they're going to reach it, as they're both being rather aggressive, which of course means that they're just trading out non-stop, and neither of them is really comfortably sitting at max out. I mean, negativeZero is just hitting it, but it's still got units in production, and then there's still potential for losses down the line. We've got one Mutalisk being a nuisance at the back of this base. Where are those Phoenix? The answer is they are all dead, so there's nothing to deal with. A single Muta killing off workers, battery overcharge even getting utilized. That could be significant if it takes a battery overcharge away from the front lines. Every little bit adds up in these bot matches, which is what makes it so hard to commentate. The bots are just fighting all over the place. Corruptors are trying to hunt down the Tempest. Over Stalkers on the ground are helping zone them away. Presently, it is 12 dead Corruptors to 1 dead Tempest. Of course, there's many dead Phoenix and even a Void Ray, which I never noticed, but apparently was constructed at some point. Revelation on the Oracles to kill off a Roach as Colossus go on a journey. We've got Overseers still flying all over the place. negativeZero is trying to secure up this 12 o'clock base. Almost loses a Tempest. And then let's see. These... yeah... Broodlords still dealing with units on the ground. Colossus are getting some big swipes off. Corruptors seem to be chasing Oracles, ignoring the Colossus. We've got more units being produced en masse on both sides. Resources Lost has started to pivot towards the way of negativeZero, which is an absolute must, seeing as how it is still down on bases compared to its opponent, even with this fresh 12 o'clock base. negativeZero is pushing on in. Colossus getting big swipes off on the hatchery. Zerg units are moving forward to try and deal with them. There's just fights all over the place. It's a non-stop war here. Broodlords are finding some Immortals that don't really have anything to support them. As I scroll down, though, I see Void Rays, so they very much are supported. Still, though, some of those Immortals may go down as Corruptors are there to fight the Void Rays. We've got Eris attempting to take this base in the upper left once more. That's big, as that will block negativeZero from securing that expansion. The Zerg is really pushing on in now, as it has a beautiful concave. The toss does pop a battery overcharge to keep those high-cost units alive, though. Eris seems determined to push on in. We've got Broodlords sieging from the back, Corruptors buffering in the front, then Infestors on the ground. It's just units all over the place. Is that one Muta still around? Yes, it is. The one Muta still harassing as this game goes on. And let's see. Eris is pushing forward. negativeZero has got an injured Colossus. That may go down. We see an Oracle perish. The Colossus does die. Broodlords are mostly unopposed except for these 3 Tempest. And some Stalkers are coming on in. They can blink underneath the Broodlords. It's very cool behavior from negativeZero that they blink under the Broodlords, then retreat. And the Tempest are enough to push away these Broodlords, since most of the Corruptors were cleaned on up. So that's going to be some nice pickoffs for the Protoss bot. Both bots are just about staying maxed out, fighting non-stop. We do have some beautiful Roach harassment from Eris, denying mining at the 5th base of negativeZero. And if it can deny this mining while also getting trades off, that could potentially mean negativeZero slips in supply, which would definitely be a big deal. The Protoss bot is dealing with this, it seems, though. Broodlings eating away at some of the Protoss units, but Broodlords are perishing as well. Eris is losing a lot of units still, though. It maintains the base in the upper left, denying that expansion from negativeZero. Corruptors picking off Void Rays, and the Tempest, though, they really do have beautiful arcs. Getting shots off just non-stop. Parasitic Bomb hits an Oracle, kills another one of the Oracles. They didn't actually split there when they very well could have. And let's see, we have got Infestor underground getting hunted down and killed, as negativeZero is freeing up the space in the upper left. I think it is an absolute must for negativeZero to take this base, as its other bases are starting to mine out. Harassment is starting to add up as well, as the mining at this base has definitely been disrupted, and negativeZero has actually slipped in the supply a little bit. We've got mass Corruptors flying forward from Eris. Beautiful pooling of Corruptors, finding an opportunity to go kill some of these Tempest. It really is. Oh, that's just so beautiful. the Corruptors pooling up, killing off the Tempest, and then the Disruptors and ground army of negativeZero are pushing in. So not just cleaning up that one base, but cleaning up a second base. So both these bots are taking blows to their economy. Eris has got more bases, but that doesn't mean it necessarily has been able to mine from them. Like, there's been some mining going on at this base, but now drones may be getting killed. And this base certainly isn't mining due to the Void Ray presence. We've got negativeZero trying to long-distance mine from it. Meanwhile, Corruptors still flying around after getting those great pickoffs. So negativeZero has to rebuild those Tempest. There's 18 Corruptors out on the map. That is no small amount as Eris goes into a very heavy air composition. Not that many units left on the ground for the Zerg. Maybe why it wasn't able to defend this base on the left. Corruptors are still flying around though. Broodlords are being produced and they can definitely get value. Lings find a disruptor. There's just so much going on the map. It's ridiculous. negativeZero trying to clean up another base. A Spore Crawler may get an observer. No, not quite. That's important that didn't go down. A fungal growth catches some of the Protoss ground army, but there really doesn't seem to be enough from Eris on the ground to deal with this. There's a few Lings, some Hydras are being produced. Broodlords definitely need to get in position to deal with this, and there presently is 5 Broodlords out, but now the Corruptors for Eris once again are going to find Tempest. That's another 2 dead Tempest, as the air units for negativeZero cannot be safe, it seems. negativeZero elects to take this expansion, saying it can't get the one in the upper left, as it had already tried that a few times. Meanwhile, Eris having more mining be denied. Both bots are not mining enough, apparently, to replace the units they're losing. Resources lost. It's 47,000 to 56,000 for Eris. So negativeZero has maintained good trades. It's done good work knocking down the economy of Eris. We'll see if it can maintain this presence, though, with this base here. But denying the mining at this base here, it really is an unfortunate base location for Eris, as it's right by where those Stargates are pumping out Tempest, so it may never be secured by the Zerg. Now, looks like Eris is pushing up, trying to clean out this Nexus once more. Stalker blinking underneath the Broodlords. Looks like, I was wondering how long this Tempest was going to be able to shoot at those Broodlords, though, because the Corruptors are out still, and they are killing off more air units. Another Tempest is out. We'll see if the Corruptors hunt that down. The Corruptor count really does keep growing for the Zerg, as it's 26 now. 5 Broodlords on the ground. This base, I'm not sure it's going to get to mine at all. However, the Tempest are getting some really nice shots off. Void Rays are coming on in. Where are those Corruptors? They are slacking. They are overstaffed right now, but they're still not getting any work done. And that is actually a huge pickoff for negativeZero, taking care of those Broodlords when there definitely was an answer to the Tempest out on the map. The Corruptors are trying to chase down a single Oracle, so the prioritization may not be what it should be. And they are all hanging around this Nexus. Will we see a Caustic Spray get dumped? They're considering it, it seems, but commands are being reissued. I'm not sure why Eris isn't doing that once again. Okay, it pulled the units up to actually go take a fight, and now they're surging forward. 2 dead Tempests just like that, +3 on these flyers. And look at the beautiful spreading of these units of negativeZero, fanning out, avoiding the Corruptors. The Corruptors splitting and pursuing them. The amount of layers that is going on in this game is ridiculous. Both bots are down to 120 supply. This is a phenomenal match. Some of those Corruptors are moving out to catch a single Void Ray. There's many more on top of this Nexus, though. We'll see if the Corruptors do decide to take that fight. That seems to be the behavior from Eris, really clumping up those Corruptors before it sends them in to take the big fight. The logic there is incredible. Meanwhile, we've got Parasitic Bomb, Fungal Growth, catching these Void Rays as they fly over a Spore. They are in trouble. negativeZero is losing many units. I do believe the Protoss bot still has the lead in the mining, though, as Eris is slipping, as it just really has this one base on the right. Most of the other ones are fairly mined out. Hydra's catching a Void Ray, as Eris does maintain a supply lead now, 140 versus 110. I'm not sure what the main cause of that is. Maybe negativeZero just taking some worse trades, and that's why it's slipping in supply. Meanwhile, Corruptors finding more Tempest. It does seem that the Corruptors, at this point in the game, are a big money sink for the Protoss. It's making 3 more Tempest, as, yeah, that is just how many dead Tempest? 22 dead Tempest. This is the point in the game that human Protoss would probably just switch back into ground, as there's no beating that many that many Corruptors without, say, Psystorm or Archon, something like that. negativeZero is still mining. It seems gas is the main bottleneck. We've got a nice Ling run by from Eris. And Oracle is coming on in, trying to be a hero. There's a Tempest as well. And let's see. The Corruptors, they're still just hanging out, grouping up as Eris stays on the defense. This base is being reestablished. Eris knows this base is here, but isn't attacking it anymore. It's focused on the Ling run by. So this is giving negativeZero a bit of time to potentially come back in this match. Although I'm not sure it's going to be easy. We'll see if Eris can secure this base in the upper right. If Eris can get this base, it will be very problematic for negativeZero. Whereas if negativeZero is allowed to hold on to this Nexus to really rebuild its army, things could improve. But I'm not sure that will matter as long as there's all these Corruptors out to counter the Tempest, the Void Rays. Even the Colossus are going to be targets for those. It seems we also do have a disruptor for negativeZero caught behind some pylons. That is lost efficiency there, dead supply, which is not good. The Zerg also fires up Hydras and Roaches, so rounding out its composition a little more is good to see. Eris, though, is still being rather passive, just focusing on these Ling run-bys. What a match this is, though, ladies and gentlemen. It really is phenomenal. And let's see, Ling run-by does get intercepted. negativeZero is rebuilding up its army. We're now up to 136 supply for the Protoss, 175 for the Zerg. That is a lot of Hydras for the Zerg right now. The Colossus is going to have its work cut out for it. Vipers are also hunting around. Where are those Corruptors? Looks like the Corruptors are flying over this base. It's a shame they don't caustic spray, but they are definitely on duty of hunting air units. It's not so easy to catch the Void Rays, though, yeah, they do have Flux Veins, so they're moving quite quickly. negativeZero still building up its army, adding more Void Rays to the composition. It is going to be difficult for the Protoss bot to take a fight, though, as I mean, there's mass Spellcasters, mass Hydras, mass Corruptors, answers to everything that Protoss could have. Charge lots are moving on in. A Disruptor kind of misses the Nova. The Colossus are getting swipes off and kiting back. Fighting over a battery or cannons with battery overcharge would be huge, but that Colossus gets deleted nonetheless. Other Colossus getting some swipes off, but it will be in trouble, it seems, as that goes down. And the Tempest are kiting away, but there's just simply too much Zerg, it seems. I think Eris is going to have this one. I'm not sure why it's not attacking that Nexus. I'm not sure why negativeZero never took this base in the upper left. But, however, it does seem that the Zerg has come out on top. And what an incredible match this is. It's not quite over just yet, but Eris is just about doubling supply of its opponent. The Zerg has been able to secure this base here. And I thought things were looking the way of negativeZero for a while, but once Eris managed to get out the Corruptors to counter the air units, that's really where it turned around, it seemed, as Roaches try and get through the door, but there's a Stalker blocking the doorway. And yeah, it's just a very great match between these two. Eris will eventually find and kill this Nexus. I think it would have been a bit of a different game. Overkill on the probes with the fungal growth to catch him. Eris loves using its spells. That's what makes it one of the best Zerg bots. Yeah, I think it would have been a bit of a different game if negativeZero changed its composition up once it no longer could take on this many Corruptors, because Tempests don't cut it in this version of StarCraft 2 against Corruptors, really. And so yeah, that really is a strength of Eris and a weakness of negativeZero, as it just kept bleeding out so many units, so many resources. Still, though, it does technically have a resources lost lead right now by like 1,000 minerals. That's going to dissipate as it loses everything, as all these bases potentially die. And that just goes to show that negativeZero was trading well for most of the game, but at some point the snowball was real from these Corruptors. Look at this, the Colossus, that's no good. That's going to die. Still, though, the amount of layers, play and counterplay between these bots really was phenomenal. It's one of the best bot games I've cast in a while. And who'd have thought that the two best bots give one of the best bot games? And we really are lucky to have bots that are like so advanced that they do have these back and forth games that are fun to watch. It's a different experience from watching regular StarCraft 2, where there's just usually one big fight and then sometimes the game's over. These bots fight all over the place, and I can barely keep up observing. But I do hope everyone did enjoy the game. Click that like button if you haven't already. Random but very cinematic Spore Crawler Forest placement by Eris. Yeah, if you did enjoy this game, click that like button. Leave a comment down below saying more bots, more Eris, more negativeZero if you want to see more of these bots playing each other. Leave a comment down below saying more bots, subscribe. If you've watched all the way to the end of this video but you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. Check out my new channel, which will be linked in the description down below. That's just for other junk I decide to put on the internet. And if you do support the channel via the YouTube membership, big thank you. It goes a long way to helping with these daily casts. And yeah, big thank you to the bot author who sent in this replay. The author of negativeZero, sending in a replay in which their bot has an incredible showing but doesn't come out on top. I always applaud bot authors that send in replays which their bot looks great but doesn't necessarily win, as it makes for a very good casting experience. A slow cleanup by Eris, taking other bases. negativeZero eventually did expand to the upper left. It's still trying its best, making more Tempests to feed into the ever-hungry mouth of Eris. But that is going to be that. More fungal on the probes. Insult to injury. The Disruptor, I think, shot its own pylons trying to get one of the roaches there. That is good comedy. We'll see if it does it again. Okay, hold on. Is it going to shoot? Oh, never mind. It doesn't get the chance. Oh, dear. Eris taking its time, but it will clean everything up. If we look at negativeZero's money, it's going up and down. I wonder what it's trying to... Oh, it's trying to build a cyber core. That's why. With its one probe that's left. This probe is like, I gotta do it, I gotta build it. Battery overcharge to keep the Nexus alive from the roaches. Wall breach, yes it was. Beautiful game. Thanks for watching.